maybe something that I'm starting, talking with Steve. Hey, welcome to Talking with Steve, and I'm Steve. Is that too cheesy? No, I don't know. But I want to talk with. I feel the pleasure of being joined with a couple friends of mine, and there's a lot of issues that we face today, and I just feel like I've been looking for a good place to like talk about some of those issues. Me myself, I'm be honest. Sometimes I feel like I don't naturally want to be political at all. Yet, the issues that deal with everyday people in our community, they're issues that we all dealing with. And so, as a pastor, I think it's important to be able to talk about those things. As citizens, we should all be talking about those things. And so, just invited some of my friends here to just have a conversation about some of the things we're thinking about. And it's not super rehearsed, but we have some kind of ideas of where we're going with a few questions, and I'll be referring to this. And so just want to encourage Brian and Gabby to introduce yourself a little bit and then get going.
I'm Gaby Mullen, and I'm excited to be here. Originally from Guatemala, married a Californian, and about 3 years ago, we moved here to Ohio. I'm a mom of three. I homeschool my kids, and I love serving God. Your turn.
My turn. I'm Brian Mullen. Like she said, I'm from Southern California. I grew up, born and raised over there. I drive a Tesla, so I'm about as California as you get. I'm a dad, husband. I got 3 kids, and I'm a CPA, tax accountant, and I love the Lord. So we're over here in Ohio, Springboro, all the way from Southern California.
How often are you tempted to move back to California, like just for the weather?
Not anymore, just for the food.
The food.
I go back for the food.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Like, give me
Mexican.
an example.
Mexican
food's
yeah.
better?
Authentic, for sure.
Better. It's not even on the same scale.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Good to know. I've visited a few times, but I don't know. You mean you don't like Skyline Chili?
Haven't been.
Oh, you've never been to Skyline Chili?
No comment.
This Sunday, you can eat some Skyline Chili. All right. So tell me a little bit about your guys' story. I'm gonna phrase this question kind of a bunch of things on one. So tell us your story. What brought you from California to Ohio? And then underneath that, like, what are the top issues you see that are kind of shaping how you'll vote this year? If you don't mind sharing. I know how people vote is kind of a personal thing, but I think you're cool to share.
So I'm going to share the story for my side of the story for the both of us. For the past, I don't know, I'm going to say probably 12 years, 13 years since our kids were ready to go to school. I started noticing things in the school system that we were not too thrilled about, and just policies that we didn't agree with, in other words. And so that was a big thing for our family, and we decided to homeschool our kids one year at a time. And then that turned into even more invasive policies, I would say. They were just California government. They would just kind of like sneak things without people knowing. And then we will just have to deal with the consequences of that. And so being in homeschool, you get to see a lot of things that are happening and it's kind of funny to think about that because you're not in the public school system, so people would say, why are you even interested in this? And I would always say it's because it's going to affect our kids, who our kids are going to play with and who they're going to all of their views, who is going to shape their views and all of that. And so we're more of a traditional family. We love the Lord. We believe my husband's the head of the house, and we just want to raise our kids with those values, loving God and loving Jesus and sharing the gospel and all of that. And so we just felt that for me personally, the public school was very aggressive towards that kind of view. And so we decided to, take the homeschool route. until the homeschool community started getting even more aggressive towards, sharing your faith. And so,
Mm.
um, I know that a lot of people don't know how persecution happens in the US. Obviously, it doesn't happen the same way that it happens in other countries, but it does happen in the sense of you're not allowed to share your faith. Um, you can't even talk about God or bring your Bible to school or simple things like that. And so it was a very anti-God culture, and so that was something that did not settle well with my heart. I really wanted a place where my kids could freely share who they are, and so we could have a place where we could share who we are and serve the Lord and all that. Not to say that the people that were around us were not doing that. We had an amazing community who they are strong believers, but I feel like at the end of the day, you have to fight for your family, and I kind of remember a phrase that stuck up with me from Mother Teresa, who a guy, went to went and looked for her and asked her how he could change the world, and sometimes we think it has to be something so big, but she said just go home and
Mm.
dedicate your time to your family, and that really stuck to my heart. And so we've been trying to nurture our family, and then from there, nurture everything else around us.
Mm.
But um, laws got really hostile against homeschoolers. We were part of a public school program where we could get charter funds for schooling, but we were not allowed to share anything that had any samples, of school samples that had anything to do with God. And so um, we kind of took a stand and said, we can't do that anymore. We're just going to go our own route. And so it just felt like all these doors were closing one after another.
Mm.
Then COVID hit, and we realized that he could work from home in a way. And the idea came to my mind that, hey, maybe we can leave this place and
If I
maybe
can
we
work
could go
anywhere,
somewhere
why am I
else.
putting up with
Yes.
stricter rules?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um, his brother's family, they kind of scoped out Ohio for us in a way. And they said, you know what, everything that you guys stand for and look forward in a place to raise your family is here. Maybe come and check it out. And so I kind of went from there, and then maybe you can share the rest.
Yeah, I think just to tie off the California thing, it was getting more hostile. Gabby was always, I kind of got annoyed by it, but she was always like, this is happening.
Yeah.
This is happening. They're passing this law, they're passing that law.
Mm.
And slowly and little by little, eating into free speech
Mm-hmm.
and into what you can do with your children
Mm-hmm.
versus the government raising your children.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time I was like, okay, leave me alone, like you're bugging the heck out of me. All right, I get it. And so there's a long story of how we finally moved to Ohio, but um, we did. And I don't miss living there. I mean, there are things that I miss. I miss the beach. I miss the mountains. I miss the food, like I said, family. But I can go back and visit, and I do frequently for work and stuff, and I'll do personal stuff. But I don't miss the crazy mismanagement.
Yeah.
I don't miss the high taxes. I don't miss the craziness of all the policies that focus on the small amount of minute minorities
Mm.
that they put on everybody else in the state. And so here in Ohio, it's not perfect. There's no good Mexican food. I already said that. But this is a place where you can I believe, and I've seen, you can have community with other believers and people who have similar values, family values, raising their kids in a place where you have free speech and where you can um, you know kind of thrive together and grow together. So
So I kind of have a theory. Kind of started when I was in high school. So I remember like the first time we got Hollister as a store, and then like PacSun,
Yeah.
and then like all my friends at school were in the middle of Ohio. We're wearing like surfer clothes, like in flip flops and like and I remember thinking like what starts in California has an influence, and I've kind of have that as a thesis. Like what starts in California, it's not like Ohio good, California bad. I didn't mean to set it up like that if that's how anyone took it, but like I think what starts in California ends up trickling down. They're the influencers. You got Hollywood, whatever, and they're influencing really the world.
Yeah.
And so as we dive into that, it's like, is that a prophetic thing to see like these issues that are hitting home there? Is that maybe a warning for us here in Midwest Ohio? Like, and I do think like the things like, to me, this year the biggest issue would be freedom of speech, and that feels bad for me to say that because honestly, abortion is really the biggest issue to me because a baby cannot defend themselves, and so I think you're supposed to speak up for people who can't defend themselves. And I think there's a lot of misinformation about what is and what isn't, but I see a baby is separate DNA from the mom. Like that should settle it. That's not the mom. That's a separate DNA. But so that's my number one, really, really in a moral sense. But if you take freedom of speech, now I can't talk about anything. And I do think you pinpointed something that's like, it's always like subtle, like take it a little bit. One thing that I see just looking at culture and interviews and the news and movies and just observing and listening to people as a person connected with other people, one thing I see is like what's happening is like labeling and then using the label as an excuse to like muzzle, labeling and muzzling, for lack of a better way to say it. It's like, no, you're speaking hate, so you have to shut up. Or that's misinformation, so you have to shut up. Or you're a threat to democracy, so you have to shut up. And I know as a fact that the founders intended free speech to be radical free speech for all people. Now, as a Christian, it's like, should we speak kindly? Yes, obviously. But what happens is super subjective. So now the government tells us
what's good,
what's acceptable and not. And I think there's a long history of really good people trying to warn us is that when the government takes power, they're never giving it back. When they take a little bit of your free speech, they're never giving that back to you. It's almost I think it was like Ronald Reagan. He's like, the worst thing anyone could say is, "I'm with the government. Trust me. I'm here to help," or something. I butchered that quote, but that's kind of what I see, and I think what really happens is I feel kind of labeled, like 2020 to now. If you supported President Trump, you were kind of labeled, and then you were muzzled with that. If you had an opinion that wasn't the approved opinion, then you got fact checked, or I've seen it happen online with lots of people, lots and lots of examples. And so, that's just, as a Christian, it concerns me for the people in my community, truly, and for my kids. If the government controls what people hear and they control what they say, they control everything.
Exactly.
And so, and that affects church life too, like what, it affects everything. So that's kind of my number one is we have, it might seem like an overreaction because some of the examples, maybe they're small, maybe they're big, but anytime we're censoring what someone says, to me, that's the number one issue right now. And then the follow up to that would be, and this is where it's like, okay, what makes you think Trump wouldn't censor people? And my answer to that is this. He was president for 4 years, bitterly hated, and he argued with people. Not that I always agree with everything he said, but he would argue with people. He would even, tear down his enemies, but he never censored them. He never stopped the media from tearing him down. He could have passed a law or done some radical thing. He did not. He took it. And so I believe with totally, maybe it's just a gut decision, or maybe I'm crazy, but I really believe there's just zero chance he's going to be the one censoring people, closing churches, doing that kind of thing. I think it. On the other hand, I do think a Harris presidency, you would see more of that, and maybe making a connection of her from California. I don't know. Is that too much of a stretch? But
Well, no, it's not. So I kind of have a story on that too, on a couple of things that you spoke. So first of all, we weren't always on the same page about homeschooling. We um, actually one of our kids went to public school for a short time, and because the principal didn't like the idea of me having two other kids at home that she couldn't um, pretty much get money from, she targeted me right away. And so, one of our kids was in kindergarten, and kindergarten is not even mandatory anywhere in the U.S. Um, schools should start in first grade. That's the first mandatory, year. But kindergarten is optional, and so, we lived in a good district, quote unquote, good, in Orange County, and everybody was. They always thought I was like this weird thing. Why wouldn't I send my kids to the best, district in Orange County or whatever? And I just had my reservations. I knew what was happening. I knew the policies. I was familiar with it, and I didn't want to do it, but we did it. And so we put our kid in public school that year, and sure enough, they wouldn't show me the books. They wouldn't let me see, what lessons she would learn, and I didn't like that. They wouldn't let me volunteer. They said, you know what, we have paid people who are trained. We don't need you here. You can, take some cutouts and make them at home and do these little crafts things there. And I just didn't like that idea. And then they would be very strict with their truancy law. And that is a product of Harris. She was the one who put that into place.
Mm.
And so because of homeschooling, and I knew that kindergarten was not mandatory, I was honestly pretty flexible with it. And I would take her and I would just tell her teacher, hey, today we have a big field trip. We're going to go to the aquarium, so she's not going to be here. So they would, call and say, well, she was absent. That's not an approved absence. You have to show proof that, you're taking your child to a place where it's approved. And it's like, this is my child.
For kindergarten?
Yes.
Mm.
It's my kid. I don't need to tell you. You don't approve me or where I take her. I'm
I
kind of a
approve you.
rebel.
You work for me.
Exactly. I'm kind of a rebel.
My
in that
taxes
sense.
pay you. You work for me.
Yeah, it was like that.
Yeah,
it was like that a lot. And
I tried saying that to a police officer one time. It didn't go
No,
very
it didn't.
well. No,
I'm
I'm just
sure.
kidding. I didn't. He
I'm
pulls
sure.
you over. Hey, you work for me.
Uh-oh.
No ticket.
No,
that doesn't go well.
no,
No, don't do that.
So her teacher was really nice. I don't think she could do anything about it, but it's just the policy, like I said.
Well, the recent law. So I heard a pastor from California. He's in Los Angeles. I don't know if he wants me to say his name, so I won't. But he was talking about this on a podcast recently, and I trust his opinion and stuff. And he was talking about the it's kind of, so from a Christian perspective, it should be kind of alarming the gender stuff that's pushed at a younger age.
Yep. And they were doing that.
Kids tend to have good questions, or maybe a level of confusion or things they ask their parents, but they kind of jump in and are like, take it a little too far. But the law, though, that was just passed in California, which is, to me, it's like a warning for the rest of the country of where we're heading, is it's not just that it's a gender thing. Christians are intolerant of, I think there's a level of like, we need to bring that national conversation and talk about that better as Christians, and like, it's in an inappropriate law because of that, but it's even beyond. It crosses over into evil when it can now take the authority of parents. So what they're doing, what the law actually enables, is giving ginger changing, gender changing. That'd be interesting. Yeah. It's just redheads bleaching their hair.
That's
gender,
wrong. That's
so wrong. It's so messed
wrong.
up. But the gender changing therapy and drugs they can give to it at the school without parents' permission.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a crossing over. America's always been a place where the philosophically or a mindset or a rule is the authority is the parents.
Yeah.
That law is actually in contradiction.
And that's what happens. It's a slow fade. So it's a little by little. You don't have to tell your parents, or if they disagree with you, it's okay. This is a safe spot for you, a safe place for you. So anyway, so that happened, and I did that a couple of times because we had frequent field trips that we would take the kids on. And so it got to the point where I got a letter from the principal saying, you need to come to meet me because by truancy law you're at fault. And she quoted the law and everything, and she said, you need to be here at this meeting. So I got there, I went to the meeting, and I needed to bring proof of why my daughter didn't go to school those days. And so I told her I homeschool my other two kids, and she wanted to know their ages and names. And I said, I'm not going to give you that. I said, you're lucky to have one of them.
Step off
here. Yeah. And she said, well, then I need you to sign this paper saying that, I read you the law and you know that you're on probation. And I said, well, I'll take it to my lawyer and I'll bring it back, and she didn't know I knew how to deal with people like that. So anyway, we still kept her in school, still went on field trips. And so I got a new letter saying you need to come. And this time he came with me. And so she went through all these ridiculous things. You don't know, the damage you're causing your daughter by not being in school, blah, 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 blah. My daughter was ahead. She didn't even need to be there, honestly. And she told us that if we had one more day, we could, she could call CPS and all these things, all these crazy things. She could come to my house. She was concerned about the safety of my other two kids and why they were not in school. And I said, they are in school. They are homeschooled. They don't have to be in a brick and mortar school. They are learning things. And so that was the day we took her out. And I said, you know what? That's it. I'm done. I gave public school a chance. I'm not against public school. It's for other people. It's just, it didn't sit well with me, the way she was treating our family.
Right.
And so that was our experience with that. But I do know that Kamala Harris, she imprisoned parents for not sending their kids to school, which is absolutely ridiculous. Kids get sick. Parents have to take days off from work. Grandparents have to step in. There's single moms that they don't have anybody else to care for their children. Imprisoning parents because you didn't send your child to school, that's ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
And so that's just one of her policies that she was very proud of. And we were witness of that. We know that actually happened. And that is just like scratching the surface of what's happening over there. They in public schools over there, they are programs where girls can actually get on a bus, go get an abortion, come back to school, and their parents will never be notified. And those are actual things that are happening that I knew because we have a friend who ran to be part of the school board, and he ran because of that. He was in public service before, and he noticed those things. Like there were girls who were seriously injured from abortions, and they had severe consequences of that, and parents never knew what happened, and they had to bring them to the doctor afterwards. And all of these horrible things that are happening that are secrets in school because it's a safe place for your children, but the parents are left completely out of the picture. And that just did not sit well with us. And not to say, that's not happening in other public schools. And that is why I encourage parents to go to your board meetings. If your child is in public school, go to your board meetings, go sit and see what are the laws that are passing, because this is not only happening in California, it's happening all over the country. And if parents are not involved and they're not voicing their opinion, the people who are sitting on the board are the ones who are making those choices. The teachers don't have any option either. They're forced to implement those things that are, forced upon them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a whole, I think it's just your personal testimony of what happened. I mean, it's hard to, no one can negate that. This is what happened. This is your story. And it just, that sounds, like that was rough. Kind of switch gears a little bit. So, very controversial person, mean tweets, all this stuff. What do you say? Because we're all out in the real world. We're all afraid to talk about who we vote for, but like, let's just be real. I think it's time to be real, right? He's been in the national scene. He's was president. He's possibly be president again. So what do you say to somebody? It's like you care about them, but they're like, how could you vote for Trump as a Christian? How do Christian? They're genuinely asking. They're not like mad, but they're like, how can you seriously vote for that guy? Maybe, and they bring up, I don't know. Should I bring up some of the things? I guess I just want to say, because I understand the mean tweets or they gets labeled as racist, bigot, different things. What else? The trials, he's a felon, different things. And so what do you say to you're a Christian, you have another Christian going, how could you vote for that guy?
Well, you kind of pointed to it a little bit earlier when you were talking about, looking at what he did in his first 4 years. And, I follow a guy, he's a pretty wise guy, Dennis Prager. He's a radio talk show host, conservative guy. And he says that people are packages. And what he means by that, I think, is nobody's perfect. Everybody has some kind of issue. Trump has a bunch. He has a bunch of issues, but what has he done? And kind of piggybacking on what Gaby was talking about with going to your school board meetings and stuff like that and seeing what's going on. During 2020, 2021, what administration was labeling parents who were speaking up at board meetings as terrorists? Was Trump administration doing that? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That he believes in free speech, I believe. He believes, and he's done things to make abortion go backwards instead of forwards, as I believe the Harris administration would want. They would want more abortion. They call it healthcare.
Yeah.
They call it a woman's right to choose. My body, my choice type of thing. I believe it's two separate DNA. We got to protect the baby. Trump has done things, monumental things in that vein. So you got to look at, what are the policies and what are the things that have actually been accomplished and what has actually been done compared to what a Harris administration or a Biden-Harris administration looks like. And that's how I can justify it. I mean, he's not, I don't put him up on a pedestal. I don't look at him like, oh, you're our savior. You're going to save our nation. I just know that if we continue down the path of Biden-Harris or a Harris administration, that's not the way the country should be going, in my overall opinion.
Yeah.
What happened with Trump while he was president, that is in the right direction. It's not perfect, but it's more in the right direction than the other.
Yeah.
That's how I would justify it.
Yeah. Gabby, what do you think about President Trump?
Well,
or that question, same question.
Yeah. So I have a Trump button. I just wear it everywhere. I'm sorry.
Do you really?
I do.
I didn't know that.
I do. Okay, so I have to go back to and share, I think as a Latina, I feel like I was given a lot of bad information about Trump, and I had to do my own research. I'm a person who loves to research things and create my own opinion about something, and not just allow whatever culture is around me create that opinion. And like Brian said, I want to stick to the facts. In going back to his first term, I would say I honestly felt he was more capable because he has a business background. Um, he knew, I started digging more into who he really was. And yes, he has a personality that is very bright, I guess. He has an issue controlling his tongue at times.
Ornery, maybe, or to put it mildly. Yeah.
I don't know. But he's a New Yorker, so you gotta think of that too. Um, but just like what Brian said, I like to go. I like to vote for a person who is going to align with the things that I believe. And he believes in free speech. He believes in parents having um, the last say in what their children, education, healthcare, all of that stuff. And that for me is a big deal. I want to be able to raise my children in the way that I think is proper. And I'm going to give my vote to the person who is going to give me that freedom.
So, what do you say though? Comes into my mind, and sorry to interject. What do you say though if somebody says, "Okay, you're saying as a mom, you should have the right of what you is done to your child"? Isn't that hypocritical that you won't let a mom get an abortion? Or what do you say to that? Right?
I think I'm not just a mom, but I'm also a birth doula and a birth coach. And I work with pregnant women from the moment of conception, from the moment they find out that they're pregnant until they deliver the baby and after postpartum. And I can tell you that all of this information that they give to the girls or the women that are about to have an abortion is wrong. They they don't know that this is a different person. They have been fed this idea that it's just a clump of cells. It's nothing. Yeah. It's not a human. It's not a living thing. It's not different. It's not separate for you. It's part of your body. But as we all agree, we know that this is a different person. It's a separate being that was formed at conception, and that's the reason why I, excuse me, I actually like to advocate for women, because they don't know the risks that this procedure has as well. There's so many risks involved, not just terminating the life of a baby, but also it can have serious consequences in their bodies. And so I don't think it's hypocritical. I think as a woman, I want to protect women, not just the baby. I want to protect the baby also, but I want to protect mom, because the consequences of, like, the emotional, the physical consequences of an abortion, they are serious.
You carry it.
Yeah, they are serious.
And you carry it for life. And it's
Yeah.
not just, Christianity makes women feel guilty and that's why they carry it for life.
Not at all.
I think in your conscience.
Yeah.
And I would interject, one, from my perspective, is do everything you can to care for moms in hard situations.
Yeah.
Obviously, totally. In Christians, we got to be better about that. But I think, a life, once you say that's a life, that's a life. Yeah. And that human being has rights.
Yeah.
So did you always like Trump and have a Trump pin, or?
No, not really. Like I said, it took me a while. I did vote for him, but it took me a while to see who he really was. And like I said, I didn't vote for him because of his personality. I actually voted for him because of his policies and the way that he said he was going to run the country. And then he fulfilled what he said he was going to do. Mm-hmm. And so, was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect, but he gave people a choice, and I'm about that. I think people should have the freedom to choose what they want to do, without just saying that. Like, for example, the narrative that I'm being fed right now is, well, you're a woman of color and you're a woman, and don't you want to see a woman president? Yeah, of course I want to see a woman president, but Above all things, I want to see somebody who is capable of running a country. So not just because she's a woman of color and she's a woman, I'm going to vote for her. This is also kind of controversial too, because we can go down the road of thinking, what is a woman, right? And that is a question that's been asked before. Nobody seems to have an answer for that. Yeah. So.
Yes. Let's be real.
Yep.
How does that? I'd be a good question for somebody that leaning that left side.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you, in one sentence, say we define woman as whatever we want, and then also say vote for her just because she's a woman?
That's right.
It just doesn't
add
up mathematically. But so you didn't really like him at first. Well, what I would say is like, I see beyond the persona.
Yeah.
There's a percentage of things he says I could laugh it off because, everybody's got their weird uncle. But there's another percentage where I'm like, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
And I don't agree. And there's mistakes he's made. But I liked what you said, the whole person or the whole, for me in 2016, he was not my first choice. In the primaries, I did not vote for him. Once the field narrowed, I had to make a hard decision because I was listening to the news that was blasting the Entertainment Tonight interviews and all these inappropriate things he had said. And they were totally putting him on blast, and they have every right to do that. But I was like looking at only hearing that. And so I was like, you know what? And so I got on his website, I looked at the issues, and I was surprised. Like, I agreed, like, defend it. You kind of got to defend the Second Amendment to protect the First Amendment.
That's right.
And so I agree with that. He promoted school choice.
That's
I've
right.
never seen a president run promoting school choice.
Yes.
But my whole life, I've thought that's important because that's getting your taxpayer money back to put your kids into school you want them to. And the truth is that theoretically, in my opinion, would increase the quality of all the schools, the public, because you're giving them choices. You're not just saying you have to go here and we control the quality.
Yeah.
And so, I encourage families, to make the choice. I don't want to be like, Pastor Steve said only homeschool your kids or something. Like, no, I think there's different things from different families.
Yes,
and,
I agree.
At the same time, like, school choice enables that.
Yeah.
And so when I looked at his policies, I was like, well, I agree. And then everybody would kind of say, well, yeah, he's just saying that. I don't think we can really believe him. But then he did it. He did what he put on that list that I saw that day in 2016.
Yeah, he fulfilled it.
He did or tried to do all of it. You could say, well, he never fully closed the border. Well, he was stinking trying to. And so he was trying to keep his word, which, as much as he has a sketchy past, keeping your word is integrity.
Yeah.
So I kind of he said, well, why would you trust Trump? I'm not trusting him to be my savior. I'm not trusting him to be my pastor. It's just, could he do a good job for 4 years?
That's it.
And I trust that he could do that.
I was going to say, actions speak louder than words. We know all that. You know that saying. And he says a lot of words. He says a lot of words. But if you look at the actions and the steps he took in his first 4 years, you can see that he is a man of his word. Or at least, like you said, he tried to get certain things done. This guy's had everything
against him.
Come against him.
Yeah.
The entire media.
Yeah.
You can even throw Fox News in there. They were against him at one point, and then they come back on.
Oh, they still are, I think.
Yeah, so it's like he's had everything thrown at him. How do you vote for a felon? He's a felon, right? I get that question from some of my liberal friends. How do you vote? He's a felon. You're gonna vote for a felon? This guy, I don't want to get into the weeds of that, but to me,
I will.
Okay, go ahead.
I heard John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, talk about this like yesterday, and he said, I'm disappointed in Democrats for using that narrative. I thought we were the party who stood up for people who were marginalized like felons.
Wow.
And I was like,
That's
amen.
Yeah.
Because I know every week we have people walking into church and they feel judged just because of a court case went this way or that way. You can't
We all have a past.
you can't like write someone off for that. Anyway.
Yeah. But my point about that is, to me, he is the anti-establishment guy, and he's had every arrow on all sides thrown at him for, I guess we're going on 8 years now. More before 2016 when he was running.
Arrow and bullets.
Literally bullets. And arrows, and they don't want him in there so bad. Which, to me, if you're making people mad on both sides, it's probably a good thing in government.
Yeah.
And he's had every single
that's true.
arrow and bullet thrown at him over this whole time, and he's still going. And to me, the lawsuit thing was kind of a sham thing. I mean, like I said, I don't want to get into the weeds, but it was a big loan thing, which real estate people do. They say my building's worth this much, and then the bank comes back and says, no, it's only worth this much. And then he got his loan and he paid it back.
That's on every level. Because when I bought my house, they're like, what is your house appraised for? Those numbers change all the time.
Right. So that's how I could vote for a felon. That's how I could vote for a felon.
Oh man, it's crazy. We can all admit we live in some crazy times.
It's crazy.
My hope is, as a person, I want to promote good conversations. As a Christian, I want to. This sounds bad. It's not that I want to be like, oh, let's have this conversation to defend Trump. It's actually, you actually have to. There's so much pressure on. How could you even be a Christian if you voted for Trump? I mean, that's kind of the insinuated thing. It's time for me, in my opinion, to speak up and be like, well, here's why. Like, I respect you if you disagree. I love everybody, but here's why. And there is good reason, in my opinion. So let's see what else I wanted to kind of talk about. Okay, quick answer. Do you think Trump hates immigrants? You're from Guatemala.
I don't think he does.
Do you think he hates immigrants?
I don't think he does.
But people think that.
I think he has been labeled, like I said, the media's just labeled him all kinds of things, and they just feed you that narrative, and you kind of have to go do your own research. I mean, how many people in Florida that work for his businesses? New York is full of immigrants. I mean, he married an immigrant. He married a woman from another country. I mean, come on.
Several of them.
I kind of forgot about that for a moment.
Okay, let's just say the latest one.
Oh my gosh. This is going to be good.
Oh, man. So I don't
do you think
so.
Well, I know it's just like, do you think he hates anybody? Like, do you think he's a hater? Or do you think he's just a guy who runs his mouth a little too much?
I think he loves this country. I don't think he has a good filter. Sometimes just says whatever, pops into his head. But after, just like what Brian said, after seeing who he is, you have to do your own research, in other words. You have to do your own research and find out,
Which is hard because
it is so twisted out there.
It takes your time and it takes your effort to go look at what actually happened, and you got
that might not even be there.
You got big companies that suppress information, so you really got.
So join X, everybody, so you can hear the other side.
Really, I have to say, Elon Musk getting X or Twitter, that was a big deal because
no, I think it was
because otherwise we don't have both sides.
Yeah.
Well. Even if you don't like Elon, the principle of getting news directly from the person on the ground, that matters. And there's so much, the news just tells us whatever they want.
Yeah, it's fabricated. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I want to end with kind of a couple positive things. So one, paint me a picture. What's the world your parents? What's just a kind of, I guess, a short but positive answer. What's the world that you would want to raise your kids in? What's that look like?
Okay, so given a little bit of background from my childhood, you guys can share a little bit of yours too. I grew up in a very dangerous place in Guatemala City, full of gangsters and drug dealers, and all kinds of crazy stuff happened. And I share my stories with them and the kids, and I actually want something different for my children. I was always afraid. School was not a safe place. The place where I lived was not a safe place. Taking public transportation was not safe. None of that was safe. And I think all of that really influences the way that I want my children to grow up. And hearing stories from him that he was able to play in the streets and go and have fun and after school with his friends and all that stuff. I never had any of that growing up, and so that really shapes the way that I want my children to grow. I want them to be in a place where they're able to have free speech. Guatemala, if you go against the government, you're gone. That's it. There's no free speech. There's no, you can't trust the police. All those things that I never knew until moving here. And I think that is the reason why so many people love America, because America has been set apart. Is it perfect? No, it's not a perfect place, but it has been set apart in many ways, in the way this country works. And so for me, I would love to have a country where my kids can be whoever they want to be, who they can share Jesus with anybody that's around them. They can publicly declare that they are followers of God, serve people, love people, and raise their families and have good food. Actually, healthy food. I'm not going to get into that, but
I'm on that bandwagon.
Quality of.
I think Robert Kennedy's kind of opened up all of that conversation.
Healthcare, quality of healthcare, and good organic food, and just.
Honestly, there's a lot of people on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go into Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, it's packed. Yeah. And so all those people should be listening to Robert Kennedy Jr. right now of what he has to say. Yeah. Even if you don't like him or whatever, he's saying some good stuff. Yeah. I've listened to what he is saying. Yes. Actually, over a year ago, I started listening to what he's saying. I don't agree with him on every issue, but that's a good man. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good dude. What do you think, man?
I think back to when I was a kid, like she was talking about, she just reminded me, and I would be outside. The rule was come home when the sun goes down or the street lights come on or whatever. And my parents didn't, they didn't worry about me all day. I'd be all over the place with my buddies. That is something that I think is missing now, because I think there's more fear out there. That's kind of a tangent, but what I want my kids to grow up in is a country that goes back to its founding principles, and that's freedom of speech, freedom to worship at church, and to love God and love people, to grow up in a country where they can have a family, and they can buy a house. They can raise their children and not be burdened with this crazy national debt that just keeps growing and growing. And that's both sides.
And to be fair, Trump added to that too.
Both sides, yeah. Both sides have messed that up. But
that would be one of the things I wish he didn't. But
right. And so just what this country was originally set out to be, it's gotten so far off track, I think, with just these crazy ideas that, to me, honestly, I equate it to, there's a real enemy in spiritually. There's a real enemy who's trying to take as many as he can with him to hell. Just to be frank, I'm not saying if you vote for Trump or you're not going to hell or something like that. I'm not saying that's not even in the equation. There's a real enemy. This nation needs Jesus, and we need mercy. We need healing in our land. And so, I think no matter who's at the helm, God is always in control.
Yeah,
He's on the throne.
I agree with that.
And we're gonna be okay. But that doesn't mean we just sit back and do nothing. Like we still got to do our part.
Yeah, Christians are supposed to be good citizens.
Yeah.
And that involves speaking up, and it involves voting. So,
right.
and depending on how you grew up or you know the news you listen to, it's hard because sometimes people fall in such different ways. But yet some of these issues, I think there's absolute truth there. You know, I think everyone, probably every American agrees there should be freedom of speech, but it kind of is creeping in so subtle that we're letting it happen, the taking away of it. I think every American probably agrees, like they don't want abortion to happen. Like that's not an ideal situation. I would think, I would hope, or a majority of Americans, I would think that. But there's so much information out there going, well, it's just a lump of cells, or it's just this, or
they don't know.
We wish it wouldn't happen, but look at the situation this person's in, or you know, and those different things. But we didn't even talk about the economy.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's crazy that freedom of speech is my number one issue when the economy's so bad.
Yeah.
And you know, it's alarming to me that Kamala gets to run not as an incumbent, because in just saying things like, if you elect me, the next 4 years will be different. It's like, you're there now, dude.
Yeah. You've been there.
Excuse me, ma'am, with all due respect, if you can fix the economy, you've already done it.
Yeah.
And you know, I want lower taxes. I want to be able to buy. Look, dude, I'm gonna be real. I want Trump to win so that I can buy gas.
Yes.
Buy gas again.
And food.
Like, I mean, let's and groceries are 4 times.
Yes.
I don't care what the news says.
Yeah.
Groceries are 4 times what they were 4 years ago.
Yeah.
4 times. I live it every week, and so it's concerning. But anyway, I thought we were ending on a positive thing. I heard you say mercy, and so let's just pray and end this out. And hopefully my recording worked good. I don't have a cameraman for this, but watch it stop recording in the middle. I hope not. Let's just pray. I want to lead us in prayer. God, just thank you so much for your love. I just pray for, in a world with like swirling ideas, I pray that truth would prevail. And God, I pray for mercy over our nation. We have many sins as a nation. I have sins as an individual. We just confess and repent and turn to you. And I just pray that above all, any candidate, can we just see a great pouring of your Spirit, and churches to be bold to speak up and to be obedient, and to, we want to see churches grow, and we want to see real differences, and addictions broken, and marriages restored, and the poor helped, and moms in really hard situations helped.
Yes.
We want all those things, and we want groceries to be affordable, because that's fundamental. Like families feeding their families, it's fundamental. And so we just pray for hope in this country, and you know, I pray. I know maybe some people may not like this guy, but I just pray for President Trump. Some people out there trying to kill him, I pray you protect him, and I pray you give him wisdom in the days to come.
Yes.
And we surrender to you. We surrender our country to you. Surrender our community to you. We surrender our hearts to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Cool. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a good week.